Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Naomi and let's dream about beauty. In today's video, I am going to share with you my top 5 tips for a successful eyeshadow application. So if you're a beginner, you might find these tips really helpful, and if you are a pro, you might enjoy just being reminded of some great tips. So if you're interested in learning more about my top 5 tips for application of eyeshadow, then just keep on watching. Okay, so I thought about doing the looks, my eyeshadow look as I was talking about my tips, but I thought, oh, it's just going to make the video too long. So we're just going to dive right into my tips. So the first one is all about brushes. You don't have to have expensive brushes, but you do have to have good brushes, and you can find good brushes at pretty much almost any price point. The ones I like to use are Morphe brushes. They're the Jaclyn Hill X Morphe collab, and I just really love these brushes, and I'm going to go through my top brushes so that you know what I am using to get looks like this. So to begin with, I like to have a brush that I use for my transition, and the one that I like to use is the JH32. Now, this is a fluffy but not too fluffy blending brush that is really good for the transition area and getting a nice blend up in there. You don't want a brush that's too dense, or it's not going to blow out this part where you want a really subtle, nice blend as it approaches up into your eyebrow area. You don't want a harsh line, you just want it nicely blended up there. And I find that this brush does a really great job. Now, I have, let's see here, more than one of these brushes. And I keep a handful of clean brushes because I find that a lot of people will use a color switch, and they'll go in with a color switch, but I don't like to do that. So my tip for you is to have 2 or 3 of the type of brush that you want. It doesn't have to be the same brand, but just have 2 or 3 blending brushes for the transition area that are, like I said, they're not too fluffy, they are a little bit dense, but they're not too dense. They just have this really nice, what would the word be? Well, they're really perfect for getting up in there, and like I said, they're not too fluffy. I'll be right back. Okay, so I just wanted to grab this brush. This is a Sigma brush, it's E40, and it's a very popular brush for blending, but I don't care for it because it bends. So when I want to blend up in here, what I find is that it's not stiff enough. Whereas the JH32, it's more dense at the bottom and fluffier at the top, so you don't have that same bend, and it just really does a good job. So put you some thought into what you want for your transition brush, play around, and have, you know, one that you're using. And then what I like to do is that if I need to blend more, I will stop using the one that's dirty and I'll go in with another clean one, because then I'm not depositing more eyeshadow into my look, and I'm getting a nice clean blend that won't muddy. So yes, transition brush and have several clean brushes. The next brush I want to talk to you about is the JH34. And the JH34 is very similar to the JH32, except that it is slightly pointed at the top and it's a little bit narrower, and it's really good for getting in the crease. So what I frequently do is I will go in with my transition color, and then I'll choose a slightly darker color, and I'll use the JH34 for that. And it's really precise, and it will just stay right there in the crease, blending in that crease color that you want, that's slightly darker than the transition color. Or what I do, and this is the next type of brush that you want, this is a Morphe blending brush. It's the Morphe M507, and it's very small. So you want several small blending brushes. Some other ones a little more expensive is the Refer. This is the Refer 14 or the Refer 13. I also have this smaller one from Morphe. This is the JH, oh goodness, the JH40. So that's a nice small blending brush. And then you go in with your darkest color, and you're just putting it wherever you want. I mean, if you're doing a halo look, then it would be here and here. But the darker, and then you can go in with the JH34, and then you can just blend that out. So just to recap, you need a good transition brush, a good crease brush, a small brush, and then I like to use the JH42. And there's other packing brushes that are similar, and it's a flat shader brush. And what I use this for is putting on my shimmer on the lid or wherever. If you're doing a halo eye, you can do the shimmer just in the center, wherever you might like. It's a nice small detailed brush, so you can really get into the corner of your eye, and it's great. So I recommend having a small flat shader brush for your brush collection, and that will really help your eyeshadow look turn out really nicely. The next one is a small liner brush. Now this is the one I use. It's the JH47. You can see it's just really tiny, and this is what I use to line underneath my eyes. I don't like a big blown out under eye, so I like to keep it detailed and a narrow line, so I go in with a small brush. Today I also went in with a bigger smudging brush underneath, just because I felt like it needed to be blended out a bit, but this is not required. And then the last one is I use this big wispy brush because fallout is a problem, and fallout can be a problem especially for beginners. And when you use a nice wispy brush like this, it does a good job of brushing away any fallout without it smearing. If you go in with a denser brush, it might smear, but this wispy one will just pick up the particles and whisk them away from your skin. So those are the brushes I like to use for a good eyeshadow look, and they don't, like I said, they don't have to be Morphe brushes. It can be whatever brushes you want. The brushes from Amazon, but just play around and see what works the best for you. But like I said, having a variety of brushes and knowing their purpose is really important. I don't like to go in with a large blending brush because I find that muddies the look, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit. The second tip I have for you is that the darker the eyeshadow that you are using, the smaller the brush should be. Do not go in and try to use a black eyeshadow with a very large blending brush, because you're just going to make a mess. So when you are using a darker shade, it's important to build it up slowly and to, like I said, use a small brush. So for example, for the look I'm wearing right now, I use this small blending brush from Morphe. I already showed it to you, the M507. And dab it into the dark eyeshadow, and then I just go into my outer corner and I apply. I don't blend too much, I just apply the shadow right in there. And then I might go in with a clean JH34, which is again the crease brush, and I just might use tiny circles to blend it out up into the crease and along the lash line, just to give the look some dimension and some contrast with having that dark shadow in the outer corner. So it's important to have a few small, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 small blending brushes that are your go-to small brush for using the darker shades. That brings me to number 3, and my number 3 tip, or my third tip, is it's easier to build a look slowly than it is to accidentally go in with too much eyeshadow. And so it's good to get in the practice of tapping your brush off, or just when you are, especially when you're using an eyeshadow that you've never used before. You don't know if there's going to be a lot of kick up, a lot of fallout, and it's just really important to go in with, you know, a moderate, just control how much eyeshadow that you have on your eyeshadow brush. Tap it off so that you reduce the amount of fallout, and then just go in with the brush and build it up slowly. That brings me to tip number 4, which is place your loaded brush where you want the most pigment. So for me, I usually do a look like this, where it's the shimmer is on the lid and I have a smoked out outer corner. And I always go in, let's see, is this my JH30? No, there it is. So this was my initial brush I use. I've had it for a long time. It's getting a little worn. And I picked up the product and then I put it there. And then I slowly start blending in circles, and then I start moving into the crease, because I want the most color to be here. That's where I want it, and then start blending into the crease and transition area, moving the product from here to here. And that way you get the most, you're not going to end up trying to blend out a huge amount of pigment that you've put in the middle of your eye, unless of course that's the look you're going for. If you want, you know, if you're not going for a look that has, and that's why I say, sorry, place your loaded brush where you want the most pigment. So if you're doing like a halo look, you might place it here and then also here. And then you might blend in a little bit this way and blend out a little bit this way. But if you are intending that, don't start in the middle of your crease or transition area with a lot of pigment on your brush, because you might find it's difficult then to blend out. And I just find it a lot easier to do it this way. That brings me to number 5, which is control your blending. So once you've got sort of all your colors on your eye that you're going to do, if you go in with a really big brush and you just, you're going to end up muddying things up. So having small brushes, having clean brushes, and controlling your blending will help you avoid a muddy look. And then you go in with a clean small blending brush like this. This is the Refer 14 that I talked about earlier, and you're just going to do small circles. So like when I'm trying to blend out my outer corner, I just do small circles and I blend it out very gently. When I'm doing my transition, again, I'm just doing small circles, and I just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, small circles. But I'm not just going all over my eye. I'm controlling the spot where I want to have that blend. Sorry, hopefully I'm making sense. And then I have, so that's my 5 tips. And I have a bonus tip for you, and that is consider spraying your shimmers. So where did I put that? So here's my blending brush, my shader brush. So I go in with the shimmer, and then I spray it with my MAC Fix Plus. So you don't need to use this. You can use any spray. Any setting spray will work. And it will make your shimmers more opaque and more dramatic. So, and also it will help you avoid fallout from the shimmer particles in the eyeshadow. So spraying your shimmers is a really good thing to do. If you are like me and you're too lazy to use a glitter glue, which I don't like using, so I always spray my shimmers and it turns out really nicely. So let's just go through these top 5 tips plus a bonus tip. Have several clean brushes available, and you need a transition brush, a crease brush, a small tiny blending brush, a packing brush or flat shader brush, a small liner brush, and a wispy brush for whisking away that fallout. The darker the eyeshadow, the smaller the brush should be. It's easier to build up a look using small amounts of eyeshadow than to go in with too much and then try to blend it out. So try to control how much product you have on your brush. Tap it off if necessary. Place your loaded brush where you want the most pigment in your eye look. So if it's the outer corner, start in the outer corner and then start to blend in. Control your blending. Make sure that you are using small circles, small movements, and hopefully you have a small brush that will help you to keep your blend where you want it so that you're not moving colors around and muddying up your look. And the final one, the bonus, is consider spraying your shimmers. And those are my top 5 tips plus a bonus tip of what I think you need to do to get a very successful eyeshadow look. Now, everybody does their looks differently. Everyone has different techniques. If you don't do it the way I've described, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. And it doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong. There's more than one way to do something. So this is just tips that I have learned that have helped me to get better at makeup, and take it for what it is. And if any of this helps you, then I am very, very happy about that. But if none of these tips are anything that you're going to use, then that's okay too. I appreciate you watching. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't, and take care. That's it for me for today. Bye bye.